Welcome into Group Chat Live. I'm Peter Ariz alongside D Money. And D, we've been tracking all the portal movement across the country here on Group Chat Football Live. Remember to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Today, wanted to talk about a program in the Indiana Hoosiers coming off an incredible season in Curt Cignetti's first year. One of our favorite quarterbacks in the country in Fernando Mendoza, who we think has a ton of upside, showed a lot at Cal this season and in the previous season before that. But now they've got to continue to surround him with talent. They've done some work in the portal, and they got a big one here in Holden Staes, a tight end who played his ball at Notre Dame previously, played it at Tennessee this last year. So he has 15 catches in each of the last two seasons. But looking at some of the clips from his Notre Dame days, a guy who seems like has a lot of production still left on the table.
Is a former four-star player from Atlanta, signs with Notre Dame out of high school. Notre Dame, as we know, one of the top tight end schools in the country, makes his way to Tennessee. You look at the stats, this year for the Volunteers, 15 catches, 131 yards, 1 touchdown. The year prior with the Irish, 15 catches, 176 yards, 4 touchdowns, including a big game against NC State. So this guy has ability. He has that blue chip pedigree, but more importantly, I think it is a fit. Not the first tight end to be signed to this class for Indiana. Also have Riley Nowakowski, a Wisconsin transfer, but really he's more of like your H-back, only 6'1", really more of kind of like a fullback H-back type that's being added. This is much more of a true tight end. And why do you want to add a tight end to this class? Well, your quarterback is Fernando Mendoza, who, again, we love, and he loves the tight end. Going to Cal last year, right? Just pulling up their stats. And I saw this in person when Miami played Cal, and the tight ends went nuts. Jack Endries, the number one receiver on the Cal Golden Bears, was a tight end, 623 yards, 2 touchdowns. And that was over several receivers who have since gone on to other schools that were pretty highly recruited out the portal. So even with some pretty good receivers, the tight end position was Mendoza's focus. And you see him. He's a tall guy. He's accurate. He's got great vision. Tight end's going to be his best friend. I'm not comparing him to like a Tom Brady or something like that. But, the taller quarterbacks with good vision, they love to go to the tight end because they can see over the line. They can see in traffic a little bit, and they can make things happen with that position. So a guy like Holden Staes, who has that 4-star pedigree, that Notre Dame pedigree, I think fits like a glove. I want to give a shout out to Jared Kelly on Twitter, who covers Indiana University athletics on 247. He made a tweet where he said that Cignetti's got a type at every position. And you look at Zach Horton, Indiana's top tight end last year, 6'4", 252. Holden Staes, 6'4", 248. So shout out to Jared Kelly on that tweet. But I thought that was a pretty good point. And again, this is not just about what Cignetti likes, it's also about what Fernando Mendoza likes.
Well, and when you think of how they played this year, it was a physical, well-coached team. You add Roman Hemby as well in the backfield, a strong runner from Maryland who had a very decorated career over there. And you're really starting to build a nice nucleus around Mendoza there. That they've done a lot of work in the portal here. So to me, this is a program that nothing flashy when you look at a lot of these rankings of guys that they've picked up. But you understand that they were aggressive last year when Cignetti first came in, brought a lot of guys over with him, had a lot of success with those guys. So you would think, and most of those guys were not highly rated either. So you have to kind of trust what this staff is doing evaluation-wise.
Yeah, we've talked about Indiana's portal class and some other videos for Group Chat Sports Live because we like the class. And it all starts with Mendoza. He is one of the top. Let's see. Yeah, Mateer, Carson Beck. John Mateer went to Oklahoma. Carson Beck to Miami. Darian Mensah to Duke. Fernando Mendoza to Indiana. He's at least top 4 when you talk about portal quarterbacks in this class. I would probably put him at number 3 with upside for even more because I do think Mendoza is getting better and better. I've watched him since he was in high school when he was getting Ivy League offers only. He has gotten better and better every single year. I do think there's still more to him. But you had a guy like Mekhi Jackson from Appalachian State. Again, we did a video on him. Very good deep threat receiver. So you got the deep ball covered. Intermediate, you were going to want a guy like Staes who has experience but still has upside and promise as that 4-star type of talent.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And again, I mentioned how how much work they've done here in the portal. Just going down the list a little bit here. Mendoza is their top rated guy. Roman Hemby, we mentioned him, and I'm just looking at some of these offensive guys. Donovan McCulley, a wide receiver coming over, or excuse me, he left the room going to Michigan, so that was definitely a loss for them. Tyler Morris, though, in a bit of a trade, comes over from Michigan at wide receiver. Mekhi Jackson, you mentioned as well. So it's a lot of new faces in the room there, but you have to feel good about it with that experience at quarterback.
No question. And it's about fit, right? It's about guys that fit you. I mean, you look at it, the Holden Staes was actually a pretty highly rated transfer. He was basically a borderline 4-star. I can tell you with certainty that the Miami Hurricanes, who just produced one of the top tight ends in the draft in Elijah Arroyo, when they looked to replace him, they ended up signing Alex Bauman from Tulane. If they didn't get Bauman, they were ready to move on Holden Staes. I mean, they were right there in the same ranking. So he could have easily been a Miami Hurricane, a program with a rich tight end tradition in the pros. So that shows you how he's valued. He's a high 4-star player. But you go down the list, not a lot, aside from Mendoza and Hemby, not a lot of these guys had the big rating, but it's more about the quality of player and the fit to what they want to do. You know, one guy we haven't talked about that had a pretty nice rating there coming from Northern Illinois, Marion Knighton, the cornerback. This is a player from Deerfield Beach that I saw at the high school level. Someone that always had a lot of upside, long corner, 6 foot, with long arms. Very intriguing guy, but because I think the lack of weight, that led to him going to Northern Illinois. But now that he's shown that he can get it done at the college level, he moves up to the Big Ten, part of that team that beat Notre Dame this year, who's now playing for the championship. So that's one name that I would like Indiana fans to keep an eye on. If you want to talk about South Florida cornerbacks, you're familiar with D'Angelo Pons from Broward County, Marion Knighton from that same area, from a powerhouse school, not Chaminade, which is where D'Angelo Pons went, but Deerfield Beach, a very, very strong institution, which produced 2 freshman All-Americas last year. O.J. Frederic, who went to the University of Miami, and Xavier Lucas, who went to the University of Wisconsin. So pipeline program for a lot of schools. He goes to Northern Illinois and ends up in Indiana. Keep an eye on Marion Knighton. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw 2 Broward defensive backs lining up. Also,
don't forget Tiawan Mullen.
Oh, yeah, of course. Another guy Indiana fans know well. And how about Sharp from Miami Northwestern? So Jamari Sharp from Miami Northwestern, neighboring Dade County, also from South Florida. Someone, again, I watched in high school and did his thing down here. He got a lot of snaps for the Indiana Hoosiers. So Indiana, not only did they have a quarterback from Miami, Florida, and South Florida, the defensive back room is having a lot of guys from down here, and it makes sense. No region produces more day 1 and day 2 picks at the defensive back position. No NFL players in general. No one produces more NFL players in general in the defensive backfield than South Florida. Indiana knows that, and they've been hunting in this region and getting some really good players.
And my last point here on Holden Staes at tight end. You may look at the numbers, 15 receptions each of the last 2 seasons. Tight end's a weird position where there's a lot of guys who are maybe the number 2 or 3 tight end at a place, have a lot of traits. He's one of those guys who's big. He can run a bit. We've seen stuff of him getting downfield and being a vertical threat in the passing game. So I think there's still a lot of upside there. He's played for a few years here in college football, so he has the experience, but can produce more than what he's shown, because tight end's just one of those spots where guys are kind of hiding there, because at the end of the day, you're not going to have multiple tight ends who you're throwing to consistently, right? These guys have roles that they play. You have a guy who normally is going to be more of a receiving threat. The other guy, not to put guys in these boxes, if you're blocking tight end, you're receiving tight end, but there are roles to play within the offense. I think he's a guy who maybe has been stuck in certain roles, and now here at Indiana can be a bigger part of the offense.
Yeah, and look, we're going to be producing Indiana content all the time. This is Group Chat Sports Live. We are covering all the big transactions, recruiting, portal, coaching, and we already have a few videos on Indiana. We're really impressed with the program in general, who isn't, but also what they're doing in the transfer portal, following their recruiting as well. So if you're interested in Indiana football and the latest, or just college football in general, the transactions, want to keep up with all of them, hard to keep it all in one place. Group Chat Sports Live. Like and subscribe. We appreciate you.